Microphone check 1 2 1 2.
What
Welcome
is
to the
this?
Black Wealth Project, folks. Y'all know we do the Black Wealth Project every week, 7 p.m. Every week, 7 p.m. On Sundays. This week's topic: banking while black. Again, banking while black. We're going to explore the pursuits of black individuals and how banks have either helped or hindered the wealth experience or the wealth gathering experience for black people. And we kind of already know what that is, right? So that's a little bit of a tell. But before we get going too much, I just want to state my claim real quick.
Truth about it, Ronnie.
My name is Kamari Ellis, and I'm here to set the record straight. There's a person who's been out here assassinating my character, getting his Joe Buttons on, talking crazy about me out in these internet streets, lying on me. I talking about I slander Bobby Brown. I did no such thing. I said Bobby Brown just wasn't the king of R&B. I gave Bobby his flowers. But he's not the king of R&B. A certain individual by the name of Jimmy, I ain't saying no names though, went on like several lives, this whole cyberbullying thing, lying on me, and said that I didn't say Bobby didn't have a contribution to the culture. I never said that. All I said was Bobby Brown was not the king of R&B. Never was.
You see the games people play, man? These are the games we play, huh? Like,
listen.
Hold on. Now you're misquoting me. I didn't say that you said he's not a contribution to culture. What I said was, if we're talking culture, do not use Billboard as a point of reference.
Why not?
Why not? Because it has nothing to do with culture.
Let's get into it.
It has nothing to do with culture. How important is KRS-One to culture?
Who is at the top of the charts? Because if Bobby was at the top of the charts, you would be all for it. So since it's not in your favor, you don't want to use it. But who's at the top?
Bobby don't have to.
I don't know.
Bobby had a run.
Yes, he had a run. But so did Keith Sweat. So did Alvin Short.
First of all, y'all can see my name. There's no Keith Sweat slander happening on my watch either. But with that being said, I want to say this too, right? You personally, I know you personally love KRS-One. How many times has he been at the top of Billboard? Is he a king? Is he a king in his sport?
He was on Billboard. He was on Billboard for that year in 1988. So yes, we will use it.
No, so we won't use it. Bobby was on Billboard too. He wasn't at the top, but neither was Chris.
Right, but that tells you how well it was accepted. So
my point is, you can't use it when you want to use it when it fits your article. We are. What did Don tell me? Don told me last night. Don said using Billboard for culture is. He said it's almost like asking the KKK how productive is the black community. Huh? Go ahead.
But here's the thing: all you got is subjectiveness after that. So then that means we need to create our own black Billboard.
Nah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, here's what we can't deny. We're talking about culture.
Somebody turn their mic off.
Yeah, we're talking about culture, right? Culture goes deeper than just music. You were outside. I was outside when Bobby came with the Gumby and cats started rocking the Gumby. Now you would say
I was never that.
I'm not saying you were, but I'm saying you can't deny what it did for culture.
Bobby had people rocking
Bobby had
an uneven box, dog.
I got you.
That's culture. That's deeper than
Ice Cube had people rocking Jerry curls. I wasn't
Jerry curls was popular.
But no. Again, but Ice Cube is also important to the culture. We're talking culture. We're talking.
But I wasn't rocking no Jerry curl, no Gumby.
I'm not saying you was. I'm not saying you was. What I'm saying is, and we're talking about our gods, our kings, our legends, right? We're talking about what they mean to black culture. I don't care what some Billboard says. I don't care what a Grammy board says. So we're talking about our folks.
How do we take out the subjectiveness? Because this is a subjective argument. I don't want to have subjective
all art is subjective. I
want to have something objective. There's no objectivity in what you're saying.
Yes, okay.
And by the way, you've already admitted that Luther, Big Luther, Glitterball Luther is the king and the god.
No. The
god. Not what I said. What I said. I said God. Luther is a different. But
if you are the god, then you encompass everything.
Let me finish. Let me finish real quick. Let me say something.
What's a god to a king?
There's an amazing body of work. It's a book. It's called Sports the Book, written by a guy named Jimmy the Blueprint Williams, right? And in this book, there's a chapter. It's called the Table of Gods, right? So the theory of the Table of Gods states that you can have more than one God, right? There's certain people who reach God level, and they're not better than each other, but they all have reached that apex. They reached that level. So I said Luther was a god. Marvin is a god. Stevie is a god. Stevie is a god of gods. Right. So what I'm saying is I put Luther in that echelon. So
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it has nothing to do with Bobby being a king.
Like Corey just said, what's a king to a god? And I put.
But I was never comparing Luther to Bobby Brown, though. That wasn't my argument. All I said was Bobby Brown was a king.
Luther. Bobby can't touch Mike.
But again, what are you arguing, though? I never said he could.
So
we said that
I never said he could. I said Bobby is a king
for 2 years.
I'm not comparing him to anybody.
Never.
He was a king.
Okay.
He changed culture.
He definitely, and we had this conversation pre-show. I would give him his king status when it came to New Jack Swing.
Thank you.
Because he really ushered the world into New Jack Swing. I mean, nobody else, like that was like the introduction, and then it went from there. So I really think we have to give, I mean, in terms of culture, I mean, Ty said with the baggy silk camera pants. I mean, I remember those. I didn't wear those. That's not something I was wearing. But I think right. But that's what I think. Again, when it came to a cultural icon during that time, he really was the king. And I think
Bobby,
y'all playing semantics right now, though.
We're not.
No,
man.
Man.
You just said New Jack Swing. I'm talking about R&B. New Jack Swing and R&B are not necessarily the same.
Oh, here we go. Now you're playing semantics, good brother. Because you're also the person that said that Michael Jackson is R&B, but Whitney Houston is pop. Are we kidding? Are you? He's literally. Listen. He is literally known as the king of pop. He's known as the king of pop.
He's known as the king of pop, but he's also the king of R&B. Michael Jackson.
No.
Don't make me start muting y'all.
Are you the audience? Are you guys listening to this?
Michael Jackson's Jackson 5 music is R&B at its core. It went pop. It wasn't intentional. He didn't intentionally cross over. He was just that good.
No, you're out of control. Right?
You're out of control.
He's known as the king of pop.
Hold on. Jose said, we don't, but why do we care what he's known as? We're talking about the culture. So we know.
Why do we care what Billboard says?
All right. Oh, Jimmy said post the link. Jose.
I got you, Jose. I got you, Jose. Kamari's trying to talk his way out of this, man, because he knows he's dead wrong. You would never see.
He would never talking in a big giant ass circle.
Yeah, he know he's full of it,
listen, man. It's already known that Jimmy and Corey go hand in hand when it comes to beating on me.
Listen, Corey actually agreed with me. All I want to do is I want to make sure that I give our king his flowers. Yes, he did.
I said we can give Bobby Brown, B. Brown his flowers.
He's king. He's the king. Short run, but he's the king.
Over who though? During that time period, he wasn't bigger than.
See, here's the thing. Here's the thing about like
he wasn't
music.
Bigger than Keith Sweat.
Let me finish.
He wasn't
the thing
bigger
about
than
music is there are people that have runs and reach king status, but they last very short, right? So what happens is when they tend to fall back, people forget just how big Bobby Brown was. There was a time when Bobby Brown was Tonight Show, A-list celebrity, like where Bobby Brown was that guy. Now he fell off, he had his own issues and what have you, but you old enough to remember this. So I can see if I was having this debate with someone. See, there's certain people who only know Bobby Brown from like reality TV and all that. But when you remember when Don't Be Cruel came out, there was no bigger act than Bobby Brown at that time. Appreciate you, Don. Don got me.
This is what I know. From 87 to 90, Keith Sweat and Albie Shore had all the basement parts smelling like sweaty butt cheeks. That's what
you act like Bobby didn't. You wildin', dog.
He's wildin'. I mean,
when Ronnie came out, what do you mean?
I wasn't in those streets at that time. I wasn't there because I'm younger than y'all. But I do know that was like the song. I mean, even more so that when we had basement parties when I was older, they were still playing that. So I think culturally we have to put everything in its own perspective. And I think you are not giving the king his flowers.
Listen, so what y'all not realizing is everybody's changing up. Courtney last week said Bobby Brown was the prince.
She had time to think about it. I did.
I would give him prince status. I would definitely.
She had time to think about it. She looked at the data. She looked at the data. She saw the Thug Lovin' video, which put it right there, which is amazing entertainment. Side note, actually, another side note: Bobby Brown is the second best biography ever written, next to Mike Tyson. Now, with that being said, though, you keep making straw man arguments anyway, because I keep talking about Bobby, and you want to bring up what Michael's doing, what Luther's doing, what Keith Sweat's doing. I'm not talking about none of them. At the time, he was the king. And by the way, you can have more than one king too.
Oh, at the same time, in the same
statuses, absolutely.
It's different kingdoms. You can have more than one king
in the same country.
Who's the king of rap?
What do you mean? What era?
You give me an era. Any era you give me is going to be more than one king.
So there's no kings. They're goats. They're goats in rap. You know.
Okay, but there's more. Is there more than one?
Yes, they're not kings though. They're goats.
Okay, I mean, ain't no other kings in this rap thing. They siblings. But all I'm saying is this: you can have more than one. Bobby reached that status, and we're going to give him his flowers. Last week, I forced you to give Tevin Campbell his flowers. Now we're giving Bobby his flowers. Next week. Who we going next week, man? Who we giving flowers to?
I agree with you about Little Tevin.
So can we take Kahan's comment, because I think that's a really important comment.
All right, hold on. Well, all right, let's go to Kahan's comment, and then let's come back and speak to our people. Nori needs to get Bobby Brown. Yeah, I agree.
Then Kamari will give him his props. So
first of all, I already gave Bobby his props. See, that's why I said you be lying on me. Stop lying on me.
Listen, shout out to JT from the Real Accountants, amazing YouTube channel. His comment is absolutely correct. We have no Usher if it wasn't. We don't have no Bobby Brown. We have no Chris Brown. We don't have Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown.
Listen, the precursor to those beats.
All I'm saying
He was the precursor.
And again, Kamari, I'm not saying that his success was sustained over a long period of time. That is not my argument.
Listen, I was outside.
I'm just saying
I get
he reached a level. That's all I'm saying. And next week, for the audience,
I would get Bobby Prince status. I just wouldn't give him King status. That's all. He is a GOAT, though. He is the GOAT. I will give Bobby GOAT status, though.
And next week, we're talking about Jeffrey Osborne. But let's go.
Listen, Jeffrey Osborne is my favorite.
Wait. Are we doing Jeffrey Osborne or are we doing LTD? Because there's a difference.
Yes, it is a difference.
There is a difference, but he was the lead singer for LTD. So let's be very clear.
But I just want to make sure which one we're talking about.
I don't think it was that different, though. You can't talk about Jeffrey Osborne without talking about LTD.
Can I talk about Teddy P and not bring up the Harold Melvin?
Yeah, actually you can. But
no, you can't.
What?
You can.
Go ahead, Kamari. I don't even know what you're on tonight.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure,
you gotta leave these damn drugs alone, bro.
And by the way, I just want to say this on the record too. Kamari, you started the video wars last night. That was not me. I just want to put that on the record.
No. But you posted that slander about me, so you started.
That wasn't slander.
You did.
I wanted you to give the king his flowers.
You tagged me in your homeboy post. I don't even know the brother, and I'm like, oh man. Hopefully, I'm not offended him or nothing. Even though he's speaking Bobby Brown.
Courtney tagged us in that post.
That was Courtney.
That was Courtney.
See, look at Courtney.
That was not us. He was minding our damn business.
You see, hold up. So then Kamari goes online and just starts slandering me.
I didn't slander him.
I grew up in the Kiss Beans era. I had no choice but to jump right back on the internet.
So let's put in perspective about what I tagged. So the issue was, I said that on our own, the Ghostbusters theme song, whatever, Ghostbusters theme song
Bobby's best song.
Yes, it is.
Too hot to handle, too cold to hold.
The whole listen, I will get a gym.
Every little step remix though. Every little step remix.
It's a remix. Remix don't count. We already covered that with Babyface and Teddy. We already covered that in their verses.
Whoa! This ain't. We're not doing no. What's the name battles?
How many 20
songs?
No, doesn't count. Does not count.
20 songs? It does count.
No,
then half of Jay-Z catalog don't count.
Listen, I put it like this. I remember getting in trouble because I stayed up at late to watch Bobby do Every Little Step remix on Arsenio Hall. Like, I'm that old. So I was outside, so I'm telling you, it's different. It's different when you're sharing.
Jimmy. You was
for me, it was
when it came out.
Arsenio Hall show came on at like midnight, dog. What are you talking about?
It was 11 o'clock, and y'all was old by then.
Well, you do realize that we weren't. We were not in Central by then. What are you talking about? You know,
Arsenio Hall came out in like 91. I wasn't. We just got there.
Hello.
No,
I was not.
No,
I was not.
Courtney, we already know you went outside yet. We got it.
First of all, Kamar, you know you're a little older than us, so I wasn't.
I'm not older than y'all. Y'all like the same age.
You are.
You are older than us.
Arsenio came out in 89, yo. It was 89.
And you was in school. You was in high school in like 91, right?
No, the year after that.
91. 92. We got in Central in 91.
See.
Yeah, but
y'all confused about what year y'all went to school.
No, we did. I'm not confused. I'm not confused, bro. Not confused.
It was the summer of 91. I remember that
the summer in 91, right?
Yeah.
So Don said y'all were in high school.
Don about to go off on
us. So Don, I was not in high school in 91. I was not. Was not. Okay. I just want to clear that up.
So listen.
Arsenio was 89. That's all I'm gonna say.
Before we lose, folks, with our banner. We all love Bobby Brown, right? These are all jokes. We don't slander anybody
He's a king
up here. All right, so let's just be clear about that. Number 2, tonight's topic: banking while black. I don't want to lose anybody for our shenanigans.
And real quick though, that's one of the last point I want to make. As an aside, Bobby Brown did Every Little Step in 1988 on Arsenio Hall. I have the exact date. I just want to put that out there. Now go ahead. We can go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was real important.
Point of clarity.
All right. So listen, I want to know, what has y'all's banking experience been like? Our audience is Black. What has your banking experience been like? Do you think it's been a fair one? Do you think it's been a bad one? Do you think it's been a great one? Put your commentary in the chat, and let's say hello to all our people in the audience.
What's up, y'all?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Jose.
All right, Jose says banking while Black or Bobby Brown is Kang.
Kang.
That's right. Get that man his flowers. Don, what's up, Don?
What's up, Don? Hey, Ty.
Tyrone, man. Tyrone is a genius. That's all
we
I'm
have
say, man.
to clarify that Tyrone has fueled a lot of the nonsense in the beginning of the show. Some of this is like actually his nonsense that he has fueled in the group chat.
Y'all will not slander. Y'all will not slander Tyrone either. He's a genius. He gets it.
But listen, I'm clear that Tyrone be feeding you stuff all the time to start shenanigans up here. I'm very clear. I'm like Courtney wasn't even around when this came out. Like,
I was
she shared
not.
posts about Bobby Brown. I'm like, okay.
Listen, he's doing his job. He's supposed to. Tyrone is a genius. Y'all won't slander. He gets it.
Listen,
he remembers.
Tyrone is like our producer.
Kamari try to act like he don't remember. He remembers.
I remember what?
When Bobby first hit the scene, like just in general.
I said I didn't remember. I just said he wasn't king.
Okay.
Listen, to me, Guy, during that era, that 86, 87, 88, 90 era, you got Guy, you got Keith Sweat. Bobby was definitely doing his thing, and you got New Edition, in my opinion.
And I do want to say this too, though. You made one statement, bro, that bothered me through our whole debate, right? You talking about?
Oh, we get off topic again.
I'm sorry, but you slandered "Don't Be Cruel." You was like, I'd have been okay if "Don't Be Cruel" never came out.
I would be.
Listen, that 5-song run, "Don't Be Cruel."
The
Listen,
album. Yes, I'm fine.
But let me finish. That's
clearly I'm not the biggest Bobby Brown fan.
No, I get that.
This is very, very subjective. I will give you that.
That 5-song run. That 5-song run on "Don't Be Cruel" is probably one of the best 5-song runs in. Because I went and looked at the Gods catalog. Luther has no 5-song run like that, right?
Yeah,
the only one that actually does is probably Stevie. Stevie got like 10-song runs. We're gonna leave him over here.
So listen, as Don Johnson always says, Kamara is trying to run a TV show, so I'm going to get back to the main topic at hand. Right? We're talking about banking while Black.
Yes, that is the topic.
We love Bobby. Listen, Thug Lovin' and On Our Own are my 2 favorite Bobby Brown songs. That's it. That's all I got. Can I?
That right there. Listen,
that tells you everything you need to know about
that tells
Kamari.
me everything I need to know right there, bro. That 5-song run on "Don't Be Cruel," and you talk about Thug Lovin'. That shows that you just in it for the entertainment and the madness, bro.
Let's talk about Black Bank.
Listen, "Don't Be Cruel,"
You just heard
Prerogative, Roni, Rock With You, and Every Little Step. There's no 5-song run like that, yo.
I would disagree, but get back to the topic at hand.
If we're not talking Mike or Stevie, there's not.
Mike, Stevie, Marvin.
Mike got a 5.
Usher, Chris Brown.
No, consecutive 5-song runs. You're not going to see it on any of those albums. Go look.
I don't know about that.
Come on.
We can do a bonus show. We can go track list. There's no the 5-song run. I'm telling you, is insane. Now take Mike out of it.
I don't know about that.
Because Thriller is by itself or something else. So we're gonna be
off the wall better than Thriller, by the way. But
all right, now we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop right now because now we're about to go real crazy.
All right. Tyrone says that 2-year run was crazy, undisputed.
Thank you, Tyrone is a genius, man. He gets it.
With the baggy silk hammer pants. All right,
culture.
we did that already. All right, that's a 5 now, Mike. No, you can't mix it too.
But
yes,
you did it.
I'm switching on the artist.
Okay, you're switching on the artist.
Yes,
so you're acknowledging it.
Yeah, I'm acknowledging it.
Okay.
Hey, Angela, how you doing? Don just put up the link. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
All right, Carbari, I was with you, but damn, Willard, I thought we was Black History brothers together. All right, so Willard says, Kamari, I was with you, but when Mike blew up on his own, it was pop music that he became the solo king. He wasn't the king of R&B. I would say it's disco music, but I got you.
Oh God! Oh God!
Come on, bro. Just say I'm wrong. That's all.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we got that one already. Listen, Jimmy, I don't agree with you, sir. I'm just sorry.
Have you read Bobby's biography, by the way?
I would never read Bobby's biography.
Bobby's biography is the most amazing piece of art ever, outside of Mike Tyson's. Mike Tyson has the greatest biography I've ever read in my life. But
so I plan on reading Mike Tyson's biography, but You know what? I don't even want to do this, right? Because my jokes will be borderline slanderous. And Bobby's going through pain right now, right? Like I said this the other day on my show, right? He lost his wife, he lost his daughter, and he just recently lost his son.
Yes, he did.
So I don't want to do anything that's disrespectful to Bobby because he's a human being, he's a brother, he's a part of the community. But these are jokes, so I'm gonna refrain from the bullying.
No, but Mike Tyson in the biography is Mike Tyson and then Bobby. And the crazy part is they're both a part of each other's story, and a lot of it they're with each other.
Because Bobby was partying with Mike the weekend he fought Buster Douglas.
Yes, he was.
And I won't go any further with that.
All right, man.
Because they was doing some stuff they shouldn't have been doing, and Mike technically didn't lose that fight, but he lost that fight.
Mike didn't really lose that fight. He knocked Bull out the ring.
Hey, listen, that's not what the records say.
Yeah, but they cheated him on the 8 count or the 10 count.
Yeah,
that's not what the record reflects.
All right.
I mean, are we keeping it objective? Because like Billboard said, no, ma. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We can go to boxing. Dad was boxing. Ring.
Pugilism.
I was out there not telling y'all what was that out here. All right, Tyrone. We
talk to him. Tyrone. Talk to him.
I was out there too.
Talk to him.
Bobby is kind of disrespected as an artist. LOL. Give him his flowers.
Dwight, thank you, Dwight. Give that man his flowers. Man.
You're supposed to be my homie, my brother.
Give that man his flowers.
Dang.
And by the way, if you put him in the verses, who's going to beat him? Because he also gets to use the New Edition catalog.
Okay, Johnny Gill, Ralph Tresvant, Belle Biv DeVoe.
No, first off. Johnny Gill.
Stay on track. Jay Patterson, what it do, y'all? Banking while black is difficult. Thank God we got back to the topic at hand. It's difficult because black banks are limited by racism. I may even perpetuate racist policies, though no fault of their own. Interesting. Okay. All right. My banking experience has been great, but I have the unfair advantage of being a vet and never really needing anything for a bank.
I think that's such a great point. Like it's such a great point to realize that there are certain aspects or certain classes of people that may not experience, even though they may be black, they may not experience certain types of discrimination because they're a part of another class that actually is favored.
Mm-hmm. Understanding your privilege. Like all of us have different types of privileges.
What's crazy is my banking experience is weird because my mom worked at a bank for 30 years, and which is one of the reasons why I don't use banks.
But it's interesting though, right, that Don brought that up because veterans were exclusive, black veterans were exclusively excluded from a lot of the GI Bill and mortgages.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I experienced that too.
And so while not trying to discount Don's situation because totally new day, totally new experience, but you can directly tie the black wealth experience to banking being restricted from black communities, black veteran communities rather.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
All right, so Kahan says, Kamari, my daughter said you got to shoot the fire with her. Listen, no violence, man. I don't shoot violence. Kahan, I don't want no smoke with your daughter. And I definitely don't want no smoke with your wife because y'all going to jump me. So I don't want no problems. All right, Monica says, I avoid banks if I can. Credit unions for me. In 2008, I had a 790 credit score. 10 years through a Bank of America and a lot of money in my account, and they denied me for a mortgage. I closed my account that day and went to CU's credit union. Listen, I technically I own some Bank of America stock. I hate Bank of America as a company though, as a bank. They're terrible.
I will say that too. I mean, Merrill was purchased by Bank of America in the crash of 2008, and the company significantly changed. Now, some of the racist policies they kept in place, but the company did change definitely when Bank of America stepped in and actually took them over. So I do think out of all of the big banks, I would say Bank of America is probably my least favorite from my banking experience. So I've actually had a lot of different banks that I've banked with. I've actually banked with credit unions, and I feel like credit unions are super. I try to get a mortgage with them or a refi for my house that my parents got me. And they were like, yeah. And it was like in the middle of COVID. And they were like, yeah, we want to get in the house. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. But they're super conservative. And I think anytime you're working with a financial institution that is super conservative, I think when it rains on certain demographics, I think it pours on us and there's a tsunami on us. And I think that happens with banking. Is that whatever, I feel like in certain cases, a white person can have a smirk on or a smudge on their credit report, and it won't be looked in the same manner as if a black person has that same mark on their credit report or whatever their banking history is. Yeah. And I think also the way check system, I worked in banking, and the way check systems works, and that's the system, it's like a credit, it's kind of like your banking history with the bank, like if you overdraw or whatever, or you overdraft the account, kind of if you write bad checks, it's kind of like this whole system that's actually not as transparent as credit reporting is. Interesting enough, now that I think about it, I don't think there's any real regulation on check system, and I think there probably should be. But it basically kicks people out of the banking system. Like when you're young and you're irresponsible with money, it kicks you out of the banking system before you can actually even right your wrongs.
Yeah, that's a fact.
My experience has been a little bit different in terms of credit unions. Like PFCU will give me anything I want. I can call them right now at this moment and they'll give me anything I want.
PFC got me in check systems.
See, I guess it all depends upon your experience and your history with them. Like I have multiple mortgages on properties through PFCU and as well as Navy Federal Credit Union. They'll give me whatever I want. So I think it's all about your experience too, because I see like in the comments, some people are talking about larger banks versus bigger banks. Now, with that being said, Bank of America is on site. I hate them. Like they literally closed my account because someone wrote me a check that bounced. And the crazy part is the check that bounced, it was because they had wrote on an old checkbook when that bank had closed. It was like SunTrust that got bought by somebody else, and they wrote it on an old check. So the check bounced. Bank of America closed my account, and they said I was a risk account because of the amount of money I had in it. I had like 6 figures in it, right? And they closed my account. I'm like, why would you close my account? That makes no sense. So it's on site with BOA. But credit unions have done me well. But
Stunt 101.
Now, no, that's not a stunt. It was a working account for real estate. It wasn't like my personal account. You know what I'm saying? I'm poor. But listen.
Stunt 101.
No, that wasn't a stunt. Listen. So what I will say is this though. It's a history of banking while black. And when we start to dig into the history, to Kamari's point, we see how it still has an effect on the wealth we have as a people right now, based upon how we were treated in the past, going all the way back to the Freedmen's Bank, going all the way back to how our soldiers were treated, going back to redlining, which happened through the banks, going back to how we were basically forced to go to loan sharks to get mortgages, and how that still goes on to the day when we start talking about check cashing places. It's been very predatory in our community. And go ahead, Corey. I know you had a point.
No, but the thing that we missing in this, we're not really missing in it, but that has an effect on that is the way our homes are valued because of where they are and because of the communities we live in. And so we were talking about appraisers on a few other different shows, and that also ties into that predatory banking piece that you're talking about. All of those things that you're talking about, because our homes are appraised for less, which means we can't go to the bank and get what we supposed to get from the banking system because of things that's happening in our community. And so we got to talk about how, the predatory things that happen in our community affect the way we can bank too. Not just the bank.
I want to add to that because I have an appraiser's license. I want to add to that. What I will say about that part is, that's also because who are we going to get the money, right? So an appraiser, like I shouldn't say for the most part, because some do work for banks. A lot of them don't work for banks. So with all they're giving is their opinion and value based on what's supposed to be facts, right? So I'm not going to deny that some of those numbers skew differently depending upon the race. But what I will say is this though. When you're talking about where you're going to get the money, and I know we've had comments that black-owned banks aren't the answer. That I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think we do need black-owned banks. And if not black-owned banks, we need black-owned folks who work in high positions within other institutions, the old fate institutions. But the fact of the matter is, those things are tied together. But a lot of it is because it's how we see value, right? It's how we see and value our own things, our own property, our own people. Everything goes back to how we see value. That's where the value actually comes from.
Well, I think that's a great point, Jimmy. I think we have related values based on perception. And I think we have based our perception on someone outside of our culture. And I think, honest to goodness, and only if does another culture or race come into our areas and actually give it a better perceived value, then at that point do we actually think like, oh, this may be valuable. Like if you look at all of the areas, and I can only speak for the major cities in Pennsylvania, and I'll talk about Pittsburgh and I'll talk about Philadelphia. I've lived in both. All of the ideal places to live, honestly, by kind of looking just generally, are Black areas. So the Hill District in Pittsburgh is right above downtown. You could actually walk downtown from the Hill District in Pittsburgh. The Hill District is predominantly Black and has consistently been predominantly Black as far as I can remember. My family's actually from there, and then they moved to Homewood and whatever. So, but then also in Philly, if you look at Philly and North Philly, a lot of North Philly touches Broad Street. It touches one of the main corridors to get in the city quickly anywhere. And so again, is that any other objectively looking at those places in terms of the proximity to a major hub, that would be a valuable piece of land. But because Black people were living there, it was a depressed value. But as soon as people started moving in from the suburbs and other places, they're like, yo, this is great. This is great location, blah, 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 blah. And it's location. But that co-location and that value is depressed when we are there. And I think it's really important for us to realize that we have to drive the narrative. And that sometimes means that we have to get money to actually lend to ourselves to make it worthwhile for everybody. We definitely. And I wanted to bring up the fact I could not remember how we got on this particular topic, but it was because of this book, which is written by a Black woman, We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. In that conversation, in her second chapter, she talks about the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank, and basically how the newly freed enslaved people or persons put their money into the bank, and then but the bank was actually run by white people. And what they did is they took, when the bank actually has deposits and they lend out the money and that, to people and businesses or consumers, whatever. And that's how they get their money back, and they're able to kind of keep their deposits healthy and pay whatever little amount of interest, they have. But what ended up happening with the white leaders in the bank is they started giving away loans to people that they knew that weren't going to pay them back or didn't care to pay it back. And then the bank ended up collapsing. But the only people that were harmed were the newly freed people, and which were Black people. And it was just like, and it took them years. They had to actually petition Congress to get some of their money back. And some of them never got any of their money back. And so again, that's kind of what I started looking like, we've really had a terrible experience from the beginning of the time that we were able to bank in this country that has really carried us forward all the way through. I feel like banks have been an instrumentality of the racist principles that have been pushed forward through the history of the United States. I mean, we've said this before, racism in the United States is just as American as pie is. So when we say something where we have a problem with racism, people take it that we're having a problem with America. And I was like, I don't know if that's what it is to you, then that's what it is to you. But it's true. I mean, there's a real problem. And every time I turn around, every time we make a move forward, we get dragged back. And then we get this whole conversation about, I don't understand what's wrong with Black people. Why can't they seem to get it together? It's like, you actually conspire against us on every turn.
Like, here's the thing, right? Speaking of the Freedmen's Bureau, I've read several books on the Freedmen's Bureau. What I find interesting about it's so many layers to that story. But one I find interesting is, they gave out loans that they knew wouldn't be paid back, or just were terrible loans to begin with, right? But when everything started going bad, they put Frederick Douglass in charge and tried to make him the scapegoat. After everything was already like terrible, they elected him president and then tried to blame him for the entire ordeal. But the part about that makes it significant in our history is, after that happened, we were nervous to deal with banks. So a lot of times you see us with, within our culture, we have certain feelings, and they're not misplaced because of the things we've been through. When you see Black folks that don't trust government, and it's a meme that's going around now, and it says, when people say I don't trust government, you should trust the government. I think of these things, and it has like Move, Tuskegee Express, so all these things. This is just another case of that. Like, when you look at what was done, even after the fact, we were just treated terribly in this situation with the Freedmen's Bank. And it's a couple, I don't have the name of the book, it's a couple books on it that are just like phenomenal to actually go into detail about what happened there. But it's a real sad part of our history that's not told. But after that, we've had a real strange relationships with banks. And a lot of times we were forced to, deal with people that charge exorbitant rates. And that's why I think the conversation still continues to today when you see what happens to us with these payday loan folks. They put them in specific neighborhoods. They're targeting specific people with those payday loans. That thing still exists.
Man, listen, I'm gonna go into this a little bit, right? Because my family, we got a family history. We used to be, my folks used to be into the numbers, which, that all started in black neighborhoods because we couldn't go to sanctioned spots to run numbers. And so we had to do it on our own. And so they took that from us, made it illegal, and then started casinos and did all that kind of stuff. We were doing that on the streets. They took that from us, the running numbers. And so I have an up-close history with that because my folks was involved in that, and my mom was in banking. And so, that kind of thing. And that goes to your deeper point, Jim, about how, we lack trust because every time we do, like, it's the same thing with marijuana. They busted us and put us in jail for the last 75 years. And now it's people making $300 and $400 million a year selling marijuana, and they still ain't free all the people they put in jail for marijuana. So it's when you're talking about the history of our government and the history of the wrongs that our government has done, we have to really, really look at why we don't trust these institutions, right? And again, it definitely leads back to the history of discrimination in this country. I don't really think that we should not trust the banking system. I think that we should get rid of it. There's a difference between mistrust. Like you should trust the banking system to do exactly what it does because that's the way it's set up to run. You should trust exactly what's going on and find ways to not have to live within those confines.
What I realized though is when I think about bank in general, a lot of times we think about the big buildings with the security, but we can start a bank amongst us four right here. So to me, banking has to just take on a different form, right? Someone in the comments mentioned about like local black banks is what we need. I agree, but I even think that you could even go even smaller than that. That's why I'm huge on black investment clubs where people are just pooling resources to make certain things happen. Because, to me, that's where it starts. Everything is about do for self because you can't sit around and wait for folks to do something for you. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to do these things ourselves. If we start determining on our own values, right? We start pooling our own resources. This is how something gets done. Nobody's coming to save us, right? And this is the reason why I think that, this could lead into a conversation about reparations, which we know is not going to happen. But because when you talk about a black bank as constituted right now, they can't do certain things. They're just prohibited from doing certain things because they have to, have certain business practices. They can't just lend to certain folks. So that's why I think it has to really go smaller. You have to have really smaller. That's why micro loans are powerful. It's why DeFi banking in the crypto space is so powerful because now we're taking the power and putting it in our own hands.
Did y'all ever look up that quantum banking that I told y'all about?
No,
you did tell us though. I've been meaning to do it.
Real quick, look that up.
All right, we'll do. Let's check in with our folks again. Jose said some things. There's some other comments in there I think that deserve some attention. So Jose says banking has been complicated for me as black banks are often diamonds in the rough in comparison to bigger banking institutions. So we're kind of forced to be using these bigger institutions and not really bank black. That's true, and it's very nuanced because a lot of the black banks have been intentionally undercapitalized. And there's been a lot of shenanigans done to the black banks to keep them undercapitalized. Don't want to go too deep into it because it's very, very nuanced.
See, again, are they really black banks? Because if the whole board of directors is got pink, is pink hued, then it ain't a black bank.
Well, I disagree with that to a certain degree. I think if ownership is less than 51% black owned, then we can get into that. Some of them are. Some of them aren't. But listen, in this country, black people only make up 14% of the population, even lesser amount of the overall wealth that's here. So it's really hard for us to do anything without anything substantial, without any white dollars. So, and then the other part is that one of y'all brought it up earlier, right? White man's ice is colder. I'm not saying that. That's just a saying. A lot
I'm
of
about
us
to say,
still
make sure you clarify that. So
That's
that
what I said.
becomes
I'm not
somebody's
saying
IG
that.
page. The
I'm not
finance
saying
rebel
that.
says.
But that's the mindset of a lot of black
yeah.
folks when it comes to things. Like if there's no white people involved, then this isn't quality. If there's no white people involved, this isn't really good, which is a lie. But again, that's a whole other conversation.
But that's why,
Stephanie
to your
says,
point. Go ahead. Sorry.
"I'll go ahead.
I was gonna say, to your point. That's why we have to build our own tables. But while we're building our own tables, we got to get seats at the other tables too, right? We have to fight on both fronts, right? Because if you don't have a seat at the table, that means that you on the menu, and we can't continue to be on the menu, right? So we have to actually fight on both fronts. But even before that, we have to recognize that there is a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer the big banks, the credit unions, the smaller banks. I find the smaller ones more discriminatory.
I ain't
Really,
mad at you. I
That's
mean, those experiences, the experiences are varied because the discrimination is like it's constant. So you can, you know what I mean. So you can definitely it could be either way. You know what I mean? Like, but it definitely happens.
It really depends on your banker. Like, I think that's the other part of it. And I think that's what Jimmy was saying. I think as much as we need people at the top, you also need people who are client facing and that will actually advocate. Because again, you always, as a banker, you have the ability to call underwriting and actually speak on your client's behalf. So you do have those options in banking. But again, you need somebody who's culturally competent and really can really advocate on your behalf, either in terms of where a property is located, even in terms of business credit, is actually if you need to kind of get that line of credit, you need somebody who can actually add color to your file, that's culturally competent. And I think a lot of times is that we don't have people in those spaces that understand us and how we operate to actually give us a chance. Is that unfortunately a lot is that if I have the same profile as a white person and a black person have the same profile and they're going to get business credit, you know who's going to get it and who's not? I mean, because again, is that, they're given the benefit of the doubt and we're not. And that's across the board. Across the board.
What's crazy is you saying that, right? And my mom was in estate banking, which is even crazier. So I kind of have an idea of the kind of madness you go through in doing estate things because my mom was in estate banking. And so she was able to help a lot of black people save a lot of money on that end dealing with banks and estates because she was the final person, you know what I mean, in the line of things that was happening on. And so when you say add color, I understand exactly what that means. You know what I mean? Somebody who has that perspective, who is able to do the things that they need to do to, you know what I mean, to spook the set by the door per se. You know what I mean? Like that's in those specific spaces that's able to help people. Most people don't know how much money people lose at a state. You know what I mean? And so that is one of the is absolute madness.
Big facts all across I mean, even just to that point, in terms of paying debts, I feel a lot of people, and this is something else that I've noticed with us culturally. And Corey actually poked at me a couple of months ago, and it still rings in my head, is that whenever we have a large sum of money, we want to pay off debt. That's what we do. We're like, oh, as soon as I get this large sum of money, I'm going to pay off debt. Honestly, goodness, 9 times out of 10, if I talk to somebody, that is the exact conversation that they are going to have. In addition to having that conversation, and that thought process, is they do the same thing with estates. And I've told people over and over again, you can pay a debt that is a person who died 10 cents on a dollar. 5 cents on a dollar. So I can call Citibank and like, well, I know this is $20,000. What I had to give to you is about $3. You can take it or not, because they've already written off that debt. Once they get notification from the Social Security Index that the person is dead, they move it to collections. Immediately they charge it off because they say, well, we think this is not collectible. We're going to charge it off our profit and loss statement. We're going to move on. So anything that a collection company will get is kind of like, oh, great, we made it. It's great. Let's work it out. So I just want to clarify that for people, because they end up paying 100, like all the debts off, and they had nothing left in inheritance. I'm like, you didn't have to do it that way.
F them bills.
It's really important for people to understand the rules of the game, because again, we are in their baseball field, so we got to know the rules of the game in order to win the game. But let's get back to the rest of these comments. J.A. Patterson says black-owned banks did not support Dr. King's march because being a radical Negro was not helpful to getting banks charters, especially when your protests and sit-ins are interrupting business. Black churches were more likely to finance church. Black churches, I'm guessing saying black banks, were more likely to finance churches, but once they foreclosed for non-payment, they became the enemy.
The black banks became the enemy because they had to foreclose on the churches. What happened is he was saying that the banks would loan to the churches to help, the church fund help build the churches. But once they had to foreclose on those churches, the bank became the enemy. Whereas it was just a money issue. It was a business issue.
Right. And, a lot of times we look back with Dr. King with rose-colored glasses and the community, all of the black community was not
hated. He was absolutely hated.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And I could definitely see a lot of that. Matter of fact, in Black Titan, A.G. Gaskins actually talks about his relationship with Dr. King and how he did not like Dr. King. But ultimately, he didn't like it because he was causing trouble. But ultimately,
AG already had his business. He was like, "You messing up business." No, I get it.
Business.
But what I did like,
ultimately, he decided to bail King out and bail out many of the civil rights protesters.
Exactly.
So, and he made the right decision. But it took a lot of people, a lot of ways to get there.
I think that's the ill part about that book. He talks about like, I don't like dude, but guess what? I'm gonna still support him and fund him, even if we don't agree on everything. He's still gonna get my money
because I understand what the movement is about. It's bigger than me.
Exactly. I think.
Yeah, but to be honest though, what you said, Corey, though, was facts, because a lot of people didn't have that much insight as an A.G. Gaskins. They didn't move. They kept King in the square.
It happens right now.
A rebel roused Negro.
Yeah, they whitewash our heroes and tell us that they were great, 20 years after they killed them.
Read Muhammad Ali's book when he's telling his story. As we were coming up, he was looked at as a hero across the world, but they hated black folks. Didn't like him.
They didn't start celebrating him until he started shaking after getting hit in the head
because he couldn't speak his mind.
Facts. Hey, Robbie. Hey, Robbie.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, the White says economic warfare is the real war we face, and banking is the battleground. I think it's deeper than economic warfare, though. I think it's economic, spiritual, emotional, psychological,
cultural.
Cultural. I think it's across the board. But again, either Jimmy or Corey said it. We don't want to acknowledge that we're at war.
But I think here's the thing: everything works by money. Everything works by money. Like the fact that our culture is used to do what? Get other people money. I mean, I think I think that is the quintessential.
They use slavery. Yeah. What people don't realize is that classism was the reason for slavery. It wasn't racism. Mm-hmm. Racism was just an identifier. Race was an identifier. It was easier to identify who should be indentured because of the hue of our skin. But it was all about economics. It was all about building the economic base.
Correct. Because the most expensive portion of business is what?
Is paying salaries.
It's labor.
It's labor. And so it was looking for free labor, which is why that's still going on right now.
Okay, so Jay Patterson says black banks would not lend out enough money, and their black depositors didn't leave enough money in their accounts long enough for them to confidently lend. Also, black banks were not allowed to participate in the fractionalized banking system because they were not members of the FDIC or the Federal Reserve. And was more likely to take over black banks than to bail them out as well as thoroughly. A lot of facts.
Great point, Jay. That's all great points.
That is an absolute bar right there.
Now, Robbie, what is this link? What you sharing with us? The White says the Freedmen's Bank robbed millions from recently freed black folks. That's true.
That wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't black folks who did it.
What do you mean?
But he said the Freedmen's Bank.
He said the Freedmen's Bank.
It was the bank. It was the bank, but it was, what I mean? Like, just the phrasing and the wording made me feel like he was saying it was black. Like, I don't know, maybe just the way I read it.
Hey, Courtney, how you doing?
Corey had the medicals. That's what it is.
All right, everybody say hi to Courtney.
Courtney. I said, hey, Courtney.
Don't get started on cannabis. Yeah, that's a rough one. Hey, Latoya, is there any institution that we can trust as blacks? No. I have a hard time thinking of one. But listen, but it's better to know the devil that you know, or what's how's the saying go, y'all? It's better
It's better to deal with the devil you know.
So we know that, right? So we got to act accordingly. Jimmy talked about something earlier. He talked about creating investment clubs. But you have investment clubs. We have susus, right? Oftentimes that have worked very, very efficiently for our community and our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora.
Some of these new people giving susus bad names.
Yeah, they've ruined that. They ran that in the ground.
Yes. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about these new folks.
I know what flowers really actually do, and what they're doing is not a susu.
Not the social media.
That's tomfoolery.
Get out of my inbox, susu. Oh, you can skip that one. You see how he didn't read that? You see that? You see how?
Because we don't know what it was in reference to.
It don't matter.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you. I'm just trying to get through the comments, trying to give everybody their proper flowers who deserve it. Unfortunately, to this day, most of the employees from our hospital do direct deposit with the check cashing establishment. Wow. I was in total shock when they asked me that. Yeah.
Oh God.
But I mean, here's the thing, though. I think, in my opinion, again, we really have to know the rules, know them really, really well, whether it be for banking, whether it be for credit unions, whether it be for small investment groups, and figuring out how to leverage them to the best of their ability. I was having a conversation with somebody because another social media person was talking about pooling our funds. And I said, yeah, that's cool. But then you got to talk about the day-to-day. Right? The accounting, the transparency. And a lot of us don't really understand how a lot of that comes into play. And that is work. So, Latoya says, definitely sad. Absolutely. And my department can't say for other areas.
He was talking about the direct deposit.
Yeah.
Check cashing.
Adrian.
Happy
birthday, Adrian.
Happy birthday to Adrian.
Happy birthday, Adrian.
Just want to make sure we acknowledge Adrian's birthday.
Bars, Corey.
Oh, you read
so
that?
I read it.
You don't know what that's about.
Yes,
I know.
Don Johnson says Jim's from the Hobby Investor taking notes.
Thanks, Don. I don't know what I was saying.
Jimmy, I'm sure somebody will say something nice to Jimmy. I will make sure to read it. Angela Williams says great information. Can somebody give Jimmy some adulation in the comments, please?
See, now you're really slandering me, right? All right, man. You know what? It's all good.
Don Johnson says favorite book of all time.
A.G. Gaston.
About Black Titans.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a podcast for that book Courtney talked about.
Yeah,
okay.
So this is here it is. Oh, here's the book again.
You got to send me a link to that book so I can add that.
Yeah.
Dr. Lucy, how you doing? Hello. Welcome. All right, so J.A. Patterson says, I'm from NYC. Black bank deposits were being lended to mostly white businesses. Black banks was a marketing ploy about the actually lending, did not benefit black businesses.
This is Philly like that.
That's not surprising.
But they're saying that about some new black businesses that are popping up on the scene now, too.
No, that's an excellent point, right? Because it's one thing to say I'm a black business, but what is it like? So we talk always about supporting black business, but sometimes you do some research, you find these black businesses aren't putting any more money back in the community. In fact, they're taking it away from the community. So we just got to be real smart with our money. Yeah.
All right, more birthday shout outs to Adrian.
Yay.
All right, thank you. I've had a great weekend with my family, but couldn't miss my other family. All right.
Yay.
Round of applause.
Who brought the onions in the room?
Yeah, Adrian.
Thank you. That's
Thank
sweet.
you.
That's so sweet.
Appreciate you, Adrian.
Love it.
Yeah, appreciate you. You show me more love to Kamari.
Oh, poor Tink Tink.
Oh man, good one. Okay, Don just put this in the building. This is for the book Courtney.
Okay. All right, got you.
A Woman's Guide to Earning More.
And she's an attorney.
And gaining economic power.
She's an attorney, y'all.
Okay, great. When's your book coming, Courtney?
On the
I'm
spot.
asking.
Yo, he said.
What are you doing today? What are you on today?
Pop, pop.
Yeah, Kamari got the Gatling gun out tonight.
Ooh.
Stop it.
That's a Gatling gun. Listen, y'all know Courtney be dropping bars. I want to see him in book format. That's all.
Listen,
And
y'all,
you
if y'all
really-
can give me, if you can give me funding for a year for me to sit down and write a book, it would be
We're supposed to be
amazing.
doing a Black Wealth Project book. That'll take
We
it and make
are.
you write it in sixes, right? And the name of the book is The Kings We Need to Celebrate. Kings and Queens We Need to Celebrate. Next chapter is Jeffrey Osborne.
Jeffrey Osborne.
All right, so here's
Yes.
a question, y'all. Here's a question. We did say we were going to write a book together, a group project. What do y'all think we should write about this book? Like specifically, I know somebody's gonna say the
I
Black
know what I
Wealth
want
Project.
to write about.
Not you, Corey, the audience. What do y'all want to see us write about, y'all?
Mhm.
Corey
Yeah.
probably wants to write about
How to
crypto.
find strip clubs in remote areas.
Actually, that's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
Corey
really
Corey
not.
told me
but-
the other day the greatest strip club is in Oklahoma. And that was just like very difficult for me to believe. But you know, I'm
One
not
of
gonna
the
deny
greatest.
I'm not gonna deny his experiences. So
One of the greatest. I see. That was the second. That was number 2.
Now here we are, these highfalutin, bougie-ass looking Negroes, and then all of a sudden we start talking about strip clubs. So y'all know we are saying
limited amount of time in places where ladies were scantily clad.
there's ratchetness amongst us all.
balance. Man.
Not
balance.
me.
It's
Not
balance.
me. Not me.
I'm
I
not
took
touching
an
that.
inordinate amount of time and
No,
money.
but
in
what
those
are some
things.
topics though? Kamari, what topic would you like to tackle?
I want to see what the audience has to say first.
I think you should give him a good topic to start from.
The basics. What are the basics of wealth creation? I think we focus so much on all the sexy stuff. We look over the basics, the fundamentals.
Oh,
And you can't-
Kamari
and
talking
you
about
can't-
fundamentals.
And you can't
Nobody
really
want to hear
do
about that, Kamari.
I know that. That ain't sexy. It's not fly. It's not fun.
Damn,
You trying to
Kamari.
sell
We
6
want to talk
books.
about the damn basics.
Yeah.
I think we should really focus on mindset. I feel like in this country, we focus so much, we conflate race and class. Although, I mean, they can be linked, but I think we confuse race and class. We conflate the two. And I think that kind of puts us in a perpetual poverty mindset. And I think that's a very dangerous place for us to be, because I think ultimately we all have the power to just be, and I think millionaires is kind of cliche and kind of hokey, but I think we all have the power to be in a better financial situation than we are. But part of the problem is that we can't get our minds right. And part of it is just because we are inundated with so much information that is focused on consumerism as opposed to everything else.
Facts.
Oh.
So Latoya says, I love y'all to write a book of Chico's thorough success.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Latoya, I see you. We have to make our acknowledgement to Latoya and Marie. Thank
That's
you.
right. That's right.
All right, the white says simplicity. Y'all just talked about Chuck Ass and Jones. For all our Philly people or non-Philly people, John is a noun. It's a person, place, or thing. All right. Talked about Chuck Ash and Jones. People still pay mofos to get money they already earned. Facts. Jay Patterson says black businesses don't need our money. They need our technical support. All right, let me read this whole thing out before I comment. To allow them to grow, black businesses historically can't get credit or set up accounts receivable. They charge more for products in their community because of this. This creates distrust in our communities. Honestly, reparations are needed. Blacks and whites have to understand white people don't owe us anything. The Constitution owes the black citizens they brutalized from slavery. Till now, a remedy to make them whole. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I like it and I don't like it. There's a lot of pieces to there. Like, there's a lot of pieces to that.
But I get
listen,
it.
Damn, for sure.
I appreciate the well thought out answer.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I really do.
No, I said I appreciate his well thought out answer.
I do too.
No, for sure.
So I will hit it from this angle. The Constitution is a document that frames our government. So ultimately, it's the guiding document for government. So if the Constitution, let's just go with that argument, if the Constitution owes us something, it's actually the government. because that's the framework for our government. And some of the frameworks of our government is limited federal government. The states have a lot more leeway in terms of especially health, safety, and welfare, which is through the 10th Amendment. That being said, of the citizens, I should say. That being said, I get the point. I think it honestly, I think white people don't necessarily owe us anything as a function of being white. But I think it's very important for us to acknowledge the benefits that they receive vis-a-vis us. So,
Because
my comment. Yes, correct. Privilege,
Gotcha.
white privilege. Mm-hmm.
Facts.
But what does that acknowledgement do for my pocket, though?
I don't think it does anything. I mean, I'm just dealing with the comment. I don't think the acknowledgement does anything for our pocket. I think the only thing that does anything for the pocket for our pocket is reparations, because ultimately you received a benefit, which was free labor for X amount of time and period. And not only that, we also know the power of compounding. So you received a early benefit, and then you had that benefit compound, and here we are. So the only way to make us whole is actually to repair the harm that was done, and that's by
You can say never with a capital N.
Yeah, but there's also levels of things, and so we can't get the reparations without really knowing.
So
and again, as we said,
I'm going to quote the great artist named Corey Kent that put out a statement years ago, is that you can't get reparations until they stop doing whatever they started doing in the first place.
big fact.
You can't repair something if you never stop doing it.
Agreed.
So you can't get reparations because they never stopped enslaving us. They never stopped looking for free labor. None of these things has ever stopped. So reparations comes after the harm is done. They realize that the harm is done, and then they start to repay because they feel sorry for what they did. They never stopped. You got to get them to stop first before you can even start talking about reparations.
That's a good point. And the country has done reparations. And I think it's a very
Which is why I know they haven't stopped doing what they've done to us, because our country has done reparations.
They have. And I think people don't realize that. I think they act like this reparations thing is a new thing or it's a novel concept when it comes to Black people. And it's like, no, they've actually done it for several different ethnic groups that they have, basically done wrong. But nobody has been done more wrong for us more of a extended period of time than Black people in America.
Facts. All right. So this is another book idea, The Future of Investment, or Different Ways to Get Funding.
Nice.
Don jumps in. So Kamari, taxes, Courtney, estate planning, Jimmy, power of crypto, stock market, and Tracy with two common power.
Part of the power of real estate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That was well thought out.
Yep.
A lot of us are also living with survivor mentality and not a wealthy mentality. Facts. So our actions oftentimes is about living for today, not the tomorrows we can control.
But that's poverty. I mean, I think so part of being a survivor.
That is the actual definition of poverty.
Yes, that's the definition of poverty. So I think, we're all saying the same thing. It's that we are living with a poverty mindset. And unfortunately, it's not our fault that we're living in it, but we have the power to transcend, but we have to get that mind right. But again, when you're consistently told, even through education, and I mean, shout out to Ivy Leaf, we're consistently told that, oh, you don't have to learn that, you can just play ball. You're not smart enough to do that. And you're consistently told things that are disempowering throughout your educational process, which is your most formative years. What do you expect to be on the other side, especially if your parents are not counteracting those messages on a daily basis when you come home from school?
So Angela says, are there black private /hard money lenders out there? Yes, there are.
Yeah, Alexis is.
Alexis. Okay. Out of Chicago.
She's in Chicago. Yep.
Right. Say it again, Courtney. What's her name?
Alexis. Let me figure out what Alexis's last name, but she's out of Chicago. I will give it to you in a second.
Yeah, she was on the show a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she gave out the info.
Yeah, she did.
I do private money loans, but only on the blockchain.
Yep.
Alexis Hart McDowell is her name.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll loan you some money on the blockchain because I know I'll get it back, or I'll get it.
All right, Don Johnson says, do 1 or 2 group chapters, then branch off into y'all expertise. Okay, I'm with that.
That also works. Don got all the good ideas in there.
He does. I love it.
Right.
Hey, Willard.
Willard says, Y'all know Willard been here, right?
Yeah, remember he disagreed with Kamari about Michael
Right.
Jackson. I was like, yeah, he was here for a while.
Oh, yeah, I know, but it's always good to
y'all
see
see
him.
that swipe? Did y'all hear that swipe?
What swipe? I was talking about him.
I heard it.
That's all.
All right, you all should write about countering the negative impact of gentrification on the Black community, i.e., how do we hold on to the family property and more actively participate in the upticks in property values as homeowners and investors.
Nice.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Ownership.
Start a small bank, so therefore when it happens, we can all jump in and
Yeah, and we could just buy
just tying it all together.
Or it don't even got to be a small bank, right, Jimmy? Like you said earlier, we could just start some kind of economic center.
I just call them banks. Like all those things to me are banks. I think the idea of a bank, we just have this thing in our head in terms of
it has to be a building.
But it could be three folks to make a bank.
Centers from all over the world. The internet changed the need for physical structures.
Agreed.
All right, let me go back to this. Latoya says everyone has gotten their reparations but us. Jose says they're still doing reparations for others, just not us. All right, Jay Patterson says all of American citizens owe Black people. That's the point I was making. We got it, Jay. J.A. White people don't owe Blacks as individuals. All Americans owe Blacks who breathe the air on their soil via their government. Reparations is an unpaid national debt that are owed to the people who built this country. So white people, we got
We're not disagreeing with you at all.
Yeah, we're not disagreeing. We're not disagreeing with you. We were just because we know there's power in words. We were just picking apart the statement as part of what we do.
Right. And Don said off topic, but J.A. Patterson's snowfall profile pic is dope.
Yeah, that is hard body karate. That's a hard body karate.
Oh, that's when he put the cane down.
Yeah, man. I'm so bothered by that a little bit, but that's another show.
You're bothered by that?
I mean, I get it. It's the whole, Kaija Sose thing. People underestimating the whole season. But you're not going to be in the middle of life or death situations and still try to maintain character with that cane, bro.
But his character is very much Machiavellian. But like you said, that's another.
Again, another show. Yeah.
All right. Great show, family, including the comments. Really great points being made by Corey. All right, so more points for Corey, none for Jimmy. Freeman's Bank was not protected, so it wasn't a jab at us. It was a jab at the whole damn thing.
Yeah, no, we got it.
Damn.
I'm playing, y'all. Jimmy know what it is.
Real in the view.
All right, and Angela, this is the web page for the lady who is a part of our audience, Alexis Hartman McDowell, who is actually a Black hard money lender. So check her out. Send her an inbox. Let her know the Black Wealth Project sent you over.
Yes.
For shizzle.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited about the conversations. I really wish that we trusted each other. I think Jimmy and Corey say it all the time about love. And I think love and trust go hand in hand. And you realize, because I think we also give each other a very short leash. And I think we see that with Black businesses. It's like, hey, this business had me waiting for 45 minutes. When they say I'd be done, they would have it for me in 15.
They don't have the systems in place to not have you waiting for 45 minutes.
Right. But here's the other thing is that if another establishment does that, you still go back.
Walmart do you dirty every time you pull up.
Right. I mean, you stand in line at Walmart, but you're still going there because it's Walmart and they have the cheapest prices. They have rollback, whatever I don't know. But my point is that we don't love each other enough to give us grace when we need it. And even still, I think Kamari and I had this conversation maybe about 2 years ago, just in terms of, hey, you notice something about a Black business and you should probably say something and say, hey, I noticed this when I was, I want to patronize you, but I noticed this problem. And you bring it to somebody's attention. I mean, it's not every time you bring it.
They might say, I can't do anything about that because I don't have the resources or the money.
Hold on. Let me push back a little bit. I'm not really pushing back. It's just another part to that too. As Black business owners, we have to be receptive to that. So we can't always just jump on the defensive. We have to be willing to take criticism from our folks and do better.
Right? Yeah, man.
Right. And
Courtney brought that up because that was actually a real life situation that she experienced with a business who I had a relationship with. And I was able to speak to it and they made corrective steps to it. So again, to Jimmy's point, they got to be open to it. And those businesses who are really looking to be great, right? They're not just looking to get a paycheck, but they're really looking to be great. Those are the ones who are open to it. A lot of times those who are just kind of looking to get a paycheck from it, and this is no knock to them. It's a different mentality. It's a
whole different vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
That goes back to what Jose was talking about.
Right.
Are they in survival mode, or are they in abundance mode? Because when you think in abundance, you can take criticism in, because you know that it's still going to come. You know what I mean? Whatever is for you is still going to be there. So you can take those corrective steps. But when you are in survival mode, man, like, I can't be bothered with that, because I got to get to this point and I got to go right here. I got to do this right now, because it's my survival is on the line. And so it gets hard to be able to receive those corrective things in the right frame of mind.
Operating out of scarcity, man. You're operating out of scarcity, so that's what happens.
Yeah.
But I think all of us could attribute, or not attribute, but could attest to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset isn't necessarily about the money that's in your pocket. Again, it's more about your mindset, and
about money.
And it's about your belief. It kind of goes to the next point.
About life in general, I think,
Mm-hmm.
not
It's
just
about
about
life.
money,
Mm-hmm.
about life in general. And if you can see that, if you got $1, right? Because Corey, I would push back on you a little bit when you say it's all about money, like getting money. I think it's about the creativity and tapping into the abundance mentality. Once you're able to see the creativity in a thing or the possibilities in a thing, you can get to the money. For example, Corey, if you had a deal, let's say you're flat broke, right? And you said, you know what, I got a deal for $3,000, and I got at least 3 relationships right here on this panel. Can I go to them and say, listen, this is the deal. This is what I'll make. This is what I'll share with you in terms of profit. And potentially that might be your $3,000 in funding. But again, if you're operating from, the whole, it takes money to make money, the whole, I can't do anything because I don't have any money, then you won't get anywhere. I think creativity is more important than money.
So you're saying exactly what I said, is just a little bit like you just took a little different angle on it, because what I was saying is that if you're so hungry for money that you can't get to the commentary that's going to help you make more money, because you're so wrapped up in your day-to-day life and about making money. And so that's the point that I was trying to make. Like, you're so focused on the money that you can't see that taking that criticism in will help bring in more money. You're blocking your own blessings by not listening to whatever that person was bringing to you as a problem.
Gotcha. All right, so Latoya says people can't trust each other because they don't trust or love themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yeah.
If we did, we'd be finding our reflections.
Woo!
Wow.
Listen.
That's a whole bar.
Where did
Right?
time out? That is a plus. But Jimmy, where did this sign come from?
Yeah, where the fuck did you get that from? Where did you get that from?
All right. So, just to answer the question, I went to an online conference this year, right? And it was the first time the conference was online. So they sent out a gift pack, and it has like these things in here, like this one.
I like that.
Man,
it's like as a joke.
Cool.
So yeah.
I love that you're on mute. I still need
Yeah,
that.
I need that.
Like that.
Now I'm gonna go have arts and crafts for my kids.
Latoya,
my kids are about to have arts and crafts.
Latoya, that was fire. You earned the first applause. So
You really it really was fire. Like, because we talked about it, I think we can't emphasize that enough. We have to. For us, everybody wants us to be a community, and they want us to be dope as a community. But you're only as good as your weakest link. And there's a lot of us that are weak links, and this is not a shot, because we haven't done.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We can link for that comment, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, but we haven't done the necessary self-work. And I think some self-work is really hard to do if you're living in that day-to-day, just trying to make it. Like, you're not saying, hey, how can I be a better person? You're saying, hey, how can I pay for this thing that needs to get paid for so I can just live? And I think, doing self-work sometimes is a luxury, but it's actually a necessity. So I think it's a very tenuous push and pull that a lot of people are dealing with.
It's nuanced.
It is very nuanced. And a lot of the problems that we have in the community are extremely nuanced. And I feel like it's it's unfortunate because I think when you try, we have to really get into the intricacies and the details. And understanding is that, you know, the only way that we move forward is as a community is if we individually do the work that would sustain the community. But it's hard to do the individual work so we can work together as a community, because so many of us are kind of just trying to work through the day to day. And I think that's a really big issue. And I don't know what the answer is to that. But I also feel like we have a couple of different pockets of people. You have one group of people that are the innovators, that are the creatives. You have another group of people that are kind of like, and no offense, the followers. And then you have those who are staunchly, you know, in their own thought process, and they don't do anything and won't do anything differently. But I think, again, it's incumbent upon the creatives and the creators and the creatives to push the community forward. And I don't know if we'll call them the top 10 or the talented 10th, I don't know, whatever, but to create a nucleus enough so those followers can kind of hop on the bandwagon, because a lot of people honestly won't do anything until they see other people do it. So that's kind of when we had that, I think we talked about in the crypto classes, that you had that adopters kind of, you know, the curve is that we're kind of very much, as long as we have been in the United States in terms of being creatives and creators, we're actually still in the early adoption of our culture.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, J.A. Patterson says the cane represents maintaining a character in order to seem weak, to see who your friends are, as well as your enemies. Glad y'all peeped it. And y'all can't tell me that walk-off didn't... Y'all can't tell me that the walk-off he did at the end was cold as hell, with Pusha Man playing in the background. Y'all,
listen, man. That thing was cold. I know. My only point, and I get why he did it. I get the whole thing. I get what it represents and all that. It was just that I was thinking back to the season about like all the different things that happened, and being in life or death moments and still maintaining character, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, once your fight or flight response kick in, you like, look, I don't really need this cane, but that's all I was saying.
Gotcha. So Latoya says, I think it's also the way we criticize. We tend to roast each other publicly.
Here we go.
Wow, you can see that here right now live.
Man.
Helping by giving feedback privately, aka Jimmy. But hey, Elizabeth. How you doing?
Elizabeth, hey, Liz, how are you?
But no, I mean, seriously, right? Jimmy and I, again, are playing. This is part of what we do. We do this in private and in public. But I'm sure if Jimmy saw me do something really, really crazy, he would probably pull me to the side privately.
Absolutely.
But maybe not.
We're 100% going to call you privately before we say anything publicly. Because
I probably have.
I would never say anything to you in public that I haven't said to you in private 10 times already.
Absolutely. Like I know for a fact, I probably called you several times all the mistakes you make on the show. But the thing is, though, right?
So,
but the thing is, we just go at it with your taste in art. Let's call it art.
All right. So, hey, Liz, welcome. Glad you're here tonight. Jose says, I think we can offer our expertise to Black businesses who don't necessarily have the systems in place. That small voluntary action of providing your expertise can push forward the growth of Black businesses. So I'm chopping at the bit because Courtney knows why I do that.
I do.
And sometimes I do it at my own detriment, and I can't do it anymore because, well, I won't say I can't do it anymore, right? I have to be very creative about doing it, because what happens is when I do it, oftentimes it might expose me to greater liability when you're not dealing with level-headed, village-minded people. And so I'll just say that.
Damn, somebody know who you're talking to.
Well, Courtney knows because she worked with me through an issue I was dealing with.
I think that's the thing, is that I feel like, and I'm gonna push back a little bit on Jose, because I agree with you about offering your services as much as you can, but the problem is that people don't value your services. They really don't. And I know that people hit me up in my inbox all the time for legal advice, and I'm gonna start sending out invoices because again. And I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like you're asking me for my expertise, but you'll go to somebody else and actually pay them for it. And it's like, no.
I get it all the time. I have family that will hire someone to like, in terms of the real estate deal,
Mhm.
and didn't ask me questions throughout the entire process. I'm like, you're paying somebody. Why are you still bothering me?
Get out of my inbox.
I'm just laughing at the thought of someone shooting you an inbox and then getting an email back with an invoice. That's just that picture is kind of funny.
The crazy part is that's what my mentor told me to do. Even if you zero out your regular price,
right,
and put in 0, send the invoice to let them know that this advice costs something, because they won't value it unless they see a price on it.
And that's the other thing is, and Kamar makes a very valid point, especially with licensed professionals, is that when we're giving you something for free, is that we are exposed with our with liability, like our livelihood is exposed, and then y'all and I was told this a long time ago when I was first licensed with my Series 7. Someone said to me specifically, he said, no one will care about your license more than you do. That's it.
Listen,
that's it.
Listen,
but
as a licensed professional, as a teacher, that's the one thing that I said, listen, you can play. There's 2 things you can't play with. You can't play with my money, and you can't play with my license.
And
you can't play with my money and my licensing. And you definitely can't play with my yo.
I want to go back to Jose's comment though, because I do think there's gems here, and I do think this should be done, right? In theory, right? So amongst us in the Black Wealth Project, we kind of do it, right? We can do it, but it's a closed loop group. Hopefully at some point, maybe we can expand that to other folks. But again, it's going to be with rules. There's going to be trust. There's going to be a knowing that if I tell Corey something, he does it, and it doesn't necessarily work out, he's not going to come back and sue me for it or say that I owe him
never.
But I'm saying
because I understand the risk profile of everything that I do.
Right.
And so I would never sue you for giving me advice, because I understand everything comes with a risk profile. So I wouldn't.
And so, again, Jose, that is the idea we should be working towards.
Yeah.
We have to do it slowly, and we have to do it, I would say, with small groups to weed them out, the bad links. So to speak.
The bad actors, because there's bad actors in everything that we do. There's a bunch of Ben Afflecks in every. There's a bunch of Ben Afflecks in every picture.
I was just about to focus on Don's comment when it came to this issue.
Okay, all right. So Don says, I had no desire to take all Black people back to Africa. There are Blacks who are no good here and will likewise be no good there. Marcus Garvey, the great Marcus Messiah Garvey. All right. A lot of our community is about building, but truth be told, some will have to be left behind for more to prosper. That's a hard truth, but it is the truth. But
it's just like, when we look at our plants and our trees and things like that, you do have to prune. Not every branch is actually going to produce good fruit. And I feel really bad about that.
Courtney the gardener. She learned
horticulture.
But I think those are things that we have to be very clear about. But again, some of it is just the function of loving yourself to know where you fit. Because sometimes it's that you're better as a root than you are as a branch. But some people try to confuse the two. You think you're a branch, but you're really a root, and vice versa. So it's about pruning. It's about kind of getting things into shape. And that does take some time, and it does take and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's another thing, is that we are such a microwave society now, is that we expect everything to happen like this. I'm going to be a millionaire overnight. Like, no, you're not. I mean, unless you win the lottery. But here's the other thing, is that when you become, and we see it all of the time, we look at sports players, we look at, rappers, is that they get this money at once, but because they haven't fixed their mind, they end up broke.
Facts. All right, so Don said we need to have Elizabeth write the intro. So I don't think Elizabeth was here when we were talking about it, but we were talking about doing a project, writing a book together. And so Don just nominated you to write the intro.
Elizabeth needs to write the intro to her own book, because she got bars.
Bars.
Facts. All right, bro, that was a sermon. The applause sign. All right, so listen, everybody. I'm going to give Jimmy his props twice. Great sign, Jimmy. Great sign, Jimmy. Gold star for Jimmy, everybody. Gold star for Jimmy. Courtney is dropping goat bars. Facts. Courtney
Thank
is a
you.
goat.
Thank you.
All right. So coming out of a pandemic and financial devastation, it's caused. How do we think of financial success in terms of giving us the freedom to get mentally well? I would say, I'll be honest, I think a lot of us need to look at therapy. I think that's a great investment many of us need to look at. Again, a lot of times we focus on the non-financial things, or excuse me, we focus on the financial things, whereas the non-financial things that'll give us the most financial gain.
Facts. I mean, but I think it's awesome that she even conceded the point that the pandemic has caused financial devastation, because I think a lot of people are missing that in the euphoria of being quote outside again. And I said this long time ago when the pandemic first started, I said outside is going to look very different. And I mean, even in the terms of our loved ones that we have lost, the pandemic has really changed the way we work, live, and play. And I think we just forget, because we had the PPP, people are starting to start getting, child credits in July, all of this money that's being poured into us really makes us forget that people are still struggling. Yeah. And I think even still about what that looks like overall is that when people struggle things happen. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I think,
the government don't think they're struggling enough, because my thing is they want these businesses back open and running it at 100%. And they're saying, I don't give a damn how much people struggle. If businesses struggle, then we don't care nothing about what the people do.
All I know is I'm back outside and everything costs more. So yeah, I'm going back home. Everything costs more.
Look at them trees. Them trees cost more.
Everything costs more.
Lloyd Banks fired.
Thank you.
All right, so Elizabeth says the rat race really hinders a lot of growth.
Facts.
And unfortunately, the burnout is real. So a lot of folks start in the space of self-growth and community growth, but then get exhausted trying to heal and deal with the white people systems and how we seem stagnant. Facts.
Listen, I mean, can we talk about how we always evaluate ourselves by the wrong metrics? I mean, if you have a fish trying to climb a tree, they're always going to fail. We are always in the wrong system.
Listen, so I'm going to quote another great philosopher named Corey Kent. And the boy said this on his Facebook page like 3, 4, 5 years ago, is that you always going to get the wrong question if you ask. You always going to get the wrong answer if you ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
We never get we're getting the answer. We're getting the answers to the questions we're asking. We're asking the wrong questions, which is why we're getting the wrong answers.
But many people don't realize that questions are more powerful than answers.
Yeah, the questions are more powerful than answers, because if you keep asking the wrong questions and you're getting the right answer every single time. It's just that you're asking the wrong question, because when you say, why are we not getting fairly treated by the police? That's not the right question. Why are we allowing ourselves to get unfairly treated by the police is the right question. And then we answer that question, right? So we keep asking the wrong question and then getting the right answer to the wrong question and not liking that response, which is we need to learn to ask better questions.
Facts. All right, so Elizabeth says, I found when we chase what white people have, we often confuse what part of the planet or place in the process we hold. We see it all the time on social media. I agree.
Okay.
But here's the problem. Y'all might hate me for this, but most of us are Negropeans. And we won't address that. And we won't root that out. Because when you come with it from a Negropean viewpoint, you're going to naturally want to chase the white stuff. And again, it's not to say that material things are bad, but everything has its own proper context and its own proper place. What's the point of chasing materialism when our schools aren't up to par? What's the point of chasing materialism when our healthcare isn't up to par? And we have to rely on everybody else to give us to take care of us. So, that's a whole different mindset.
Oh, man.
All right, so Elizabeth said I do the forward. But listen, Corey don't push back. He said you got to do your own forward on your own book.
First.
Start with that.
First, not only you can do the forward for the book for us too, but you got to do yours first. Mm-hmm. First, let me push back a little bit.
All right, so Jose says, can can we go offline, get together? Sorry, can we offline get together, put together our prosperity group where we all are the roots, where y'all are the roots? That's possible. We talk.
Capitalize the bro. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you got to capitalize the bro.
We all have talked about that a little bit. It's coming. It's coming. Jose, tell us more of what you want to see, though. All right, Latoya says, I don't think we're chasing whiteness. We're chasing the ease in which we see them being able to exist in. I'm
using we as a collective.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm using we as a collective now. All of us got you.
It's funny. I was having this conversation with Monica the other day. So, on the rehab project I'm working on now, which is in the hood, hashtag by the hood. It's but you got some old fays who are starting to move around the area. But I was telling her it's always amazing to me, because I see it in a lot of the projects I work on, how comfortable they are. When they come into a space, the way they walk around, it's like, it's like they own the world. I said, it must be amazing to know that you have that kind of caucasity to just walk around and know that you own the world. Like,
yes, and coming to somebody else's neighborhood, this is your first time here, and you won't call the police on what they've been doing for the last 20, 30 years. Like, how do we get here? Like, I've never seen people act in a way like they belong.
They own. Listen, the earth is their turf. They walk around this whole planet. Like, I've been in different countries. They just walk around like
every single place. That's why we get the terminology "ugly American." Like, that's literally what other people think about us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Stupid too. We get stupid American too. I've gotten, and then but I also will say this. Now, it does make me feel warm and fuzzy. I have been told when I go overseas, they're like, "You're not American." I'm like, but my passport though. And I say that to say for a couple of things is that they actually equate. President Obama was the very first time they've ever seen America represented by Black anything. One, two. Even when you go overseas, they're like, they just assume that all Americans are white and just ridiculous. That's really the thought. I think most of us have traveled, and they really just. I was in the Philippines, and they were like, "There's no way you can be Black." Now, you hear me speaking English, they're just like, there's no way you can be American. And I was just like, okay, y'all got it. And it wasn't necessarily, and the Philippines actually have had a lot of Black servicemen come through. So I just want to clarify that point and give a little bit more color. But it was just the whole thing is that the last time they've seen anyone look a certain way that wasn't in uniform, you just couldn't be. And I just think that's honestly the thought process across the world is that America is just white. And they're just ignorant and they're ridiculous, and they come over to other places and they just show their entire A-double scribble.
Okay, so Bars Kamari, Negro P and small N. Facts.
You skipped the comment.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Elizabeth.
I'm not asking any more questions. We know the answers. Mm-hmm. They will straight gaslight us with BS. That's a fact. That's right. All right, well, they acknowledge. Yep, that's my point, Jimmy. Got you. Black are safer everywhere else but here to a point. Yeah.
To Corey's point, we got that's what we got to start doing. We got to start asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. That's what it all boils down to.
So the right question to end the night off, right? Even though we were talking about the Black banking experiences, right? What's the solution to this? What is the solution? We know what banks before. We know they're important. How do we now create our own economic / capital centers so we can fund our own projects, so we can create and define our own spaces? So is that by further supporting Black-owned banks? Is it by creating new Black-owned banks? Is it further supporting credit unions? I'm not sure if I know of any Black-run or Black-owned credit unions. That would be a great research project.
There is, I think, 2 in the country, I believe.
2 in the country, okay. Or is it?
That was pre-pandemic. So I don't know now.
So how about that?
So I think that the question.
Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on. Okay. Or is it to create our own smaller investment clubs that we're just using investment clubs as a title placeholder, but be able to create our own investment clubs / susus, and do our own thing under the radar.
No, I was going to say that the question at hand is how I love thee. I count the ways. I'm sorry. No, listen. But really, I think we have to redefine. Kamari caught that. We have to redefine what a bank is, and I know this is going to sound crazy, like I'm plugging something, but I really believe that what's going on in the crypto space is the perfect place for us to kind of like, I don't want to say play catch up because that's not what it is.
Mhm.
But in terms of what's going on with that space and smart contracts, it's the fairest place I've ever seen us be treated, because it's not about race, it's not about color. They don't care how tall you are, short you are, fat, skinny, none of that matters. It's about assets and liabilities. And that's all it boils down to, because we're talking about operating with smart contracts. And we're taking out, to your point about a lot of our conversation, we're taking out the subjectivity of it. So that space is something that we need to be studying. A lot of times we get caught up on what's the price of Bitcoin or what's the price of Doge. And we're missing the entire economic and just technological wave that's happening within that space. But that's a space where, as a people, we need to bunker down and really figure out how to utilize that to push our agenda forward.
Mhm.
There's two ways to kill a pig: you feed it or starve it.
Mhm.
So we there's two ways to kill a pig. So the thing about it is we have to feed into the system, which is we have to fully immerse ourselves in the system and be the very best we can be within the system, or we have to disconnect. We have to do everything we can to disconnect from the systems that are there and create our own.
Mhm.
And so there's really we're in the in-between spaces, which is why we keep getting smashed, because we keep getting in between. Are we trying to break away, or are we trying to, plug in?
Mhm.
And my thing is, you got to choose one.
I do think there's a middle ground, though. I do think
there is no middle ground. You got to
Let me
feed and
finish.
starve it.
Let me finish. I think there's a middle ground, and we see other people play the middle ground really, really well.
Those people got reparations.
The end goal, though, is always to have your own, right? That's the long-term strategy. But what's the short-term tactics that you need to operate in order to get to that long-term strategy? And that's where I see a lot of us falling short. So yeah, and in the interim, in the middle space, yeah, we do need to interact. Like Jimmy said, representation matters. We need to be a part of these bigger corporations, these smaller corporations.
I get your point though, but I get Corey's point too, right? So
No, I get them, but I'm just saying that we have to operate again with a long-term approach in mind. And I don't think we're there.
Talking the Sam Greenlee approach, right? And that's
to a certain degree.
Yeah, but the thing is,
By the door.
that's why I always constantly bring up, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we're at war. A lot of our folks don't want to admit that, right? They're happy because they got iPhones and Jordans, not understanding the bigger picture. And a lot of times when folks are doing well themselves, they don't care about the collective. So unless we're willing to acknowledge that we are at war, when we get into these spaces and we start doing better for ourselves, we don't even care about the rest. And we see it often.
Well, I mean, I think a good thing is I think most of the people here in our audience recognize that we are at war. And I think at a point, Jose is asking the question and putting stuff in the comments now that I'll come to in a second. But that's kind of the end goal. That's where we got to start moving to. Now, Don says this: Iraqis treated me better than any cop I ever ran into. Wow, that's deep. That's deep.
It's not, because that's real.
But it's still deep, though. It's still deep. I mean, because, again, Iraqis, with everything that's going on there, are still able to see the humanity in a black person versus this sort of quote-unquote American construct that has been built to destroy black people, in my opinion. All right, Jose says, I was thinking group real estate projects, investment groups, education centers, health and wellness centers. Okay. All right. I mean, we're down.
Education, health and wellness, investment, banking, real estate. I mean, those are the pillars of the community.
Right.
Facts.
Don't forget about the judicial system. But I'm sorry.
The more I research crypto, excuse me. I want to make clear that Elizabeth is addressing Jimmy. So I got to say it twice, y'all. The more I research crypto, the more I play with it. I agree with Jimmy. So again, the more Elizabeth researches crypto, the more she plays with it, the more she agrees with Jimmy. All right, y'all.
But I think the whole thing about crypto
Hold that. And so Liz says, starve that bitch.
I agree.
Hey,
but I agree.
Book title right there.
But I think I agree
that is the
that
book title.
That's
that
hard
is a book,
right?
That's a book title. But I think that's it. I mean, I'm tired. we have to work outside of the system. We have had our best success in the community when we have completely gotten out of the system that oppresses us. The system oppresses us. It's built to oppress us. So you have to get out of it. I mean, anytime that I see, like when you have super major successful entrepreneurs, and I just think it's a really good example, is that they've opted out of the system. You have to opt out of the system.
The Black Panther Party opted out of the system. The Black Panther Party. What they did, listen, what they did was support our own. So what they did is they took everything into their own hands, and then the government came in and said, "No, we don't want you to do that."
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't opt out of the system. They didn't opt out of the system. What the Black Panther Party did at its root is they understood the playing field. They studied the laws, and then they worked with them. When you opt out of the system, when you truly opt out of the system, you're operating from more of an anarchist type framework in the Black Panther Party.
No, that's not it. You have to, in order to operate outside of the system,
you have to understand the system.
I agree. I agree. But that's going into the system. But understanding it with a purpose. They had a purpose. They had a purpose.
No, it's actually weird because
the purpose was due for self.
I think all of y'all are right, even though y'all disagree, and somehow y'all all are right. But anyway,
listen, Jimmy, to your point, two things can be right and be different at the same time. So.
Yeah, but I think we just passed the anniversary of Tulsa, and to Kamari's point, everybody was pandering to Tulsa. But the great thing that came out of that is I've seen about 3 documentaries. There's all kinds of new information. There's a podcast about it. So we're getting more information. And that was Tracy's point that, hey, something will good to come out of this. You'll get more information. But it's kind of like they operated, kind of the kind of conversation you're having. They were outside of the system, but they were using the same rules from the system, but just with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's what made that special, because it's a do for self approach. But they were doing for self because they couldn't get anything else. They had to do for self. Right. So I think that's what it really comes down to, is us understanding, because a lot of times in our community, we have these conversations, people still don't understand. Nobody is coming to save us. We have to take care of ourselves, because nobody is coming to save us. And as we relate it back to our main topic of banking, that's why I believe we got to take it into our own hands and just look at alternate ways of creating banks. The idea of a bank isn't the big structure where you're going down and get the loan and there's run on a bank, and all that's gone. Banking should have a different definition at this point. We can start with smaller banks. We start with microloans, looking out for each other, lending to each other, our own hard money lenders. You know what I'm saying? Start funding our own cars to get. So that's what we have to start doing, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I completely agree with that.
So like Jose says, like Brother Malcolm advocated separation but not segregation.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I think we also, and someone asked, like, how do we start our own new Black Wall Street? And I mean, that was the whole conversation that was spawning out of the Tulsa conversation. And I was like, I don't want to. Because every single time that we actually set up our own spot, High Move 1985, we set up our own shop. Here comes somebody. You put us all in one physical location. It's easier to find us and slaughter us.
This is why we have to operate, to go back to my crypto thing, in a decentralized manner. You're decentralized, so you can't knock off the head.
There's no leader.
And I hate to use this analogy, but you almost have to move like a terrorist organization, right? You can never
you can't say that on these airwaves, dog.
Yes.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. Let me give context. Please let me give context.
They are not.
You're not going to let me give context.
They are not the thoughts and opinions of the Black Wealth Project.
No, they are not. They are not. But let me give context to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can never really defeat it, because what happens is when you knock off the head, there is no head, right? It's a decentralized entity.
Cells.
It's a decentralized entity. Sorry, Cordy. I was just trying to make the analogy. I'm not trying to say, and I hated to say that, but that's kind of how you have to move. When you're at war, you have to kind of move that way and understand that you can't have all the power into one person. It just can't be that way. A lot of times we're out here looking for leaders and heroes.
That's the wrong thing.
And the reason that we're looking for leaders and heroes is because we want to blame somebody when things don't go the certain way, right?
You don't want responsibility.
And we also were programmed to have a Messiah complex.
Correct.
That too.
So the thing about our leaders is they killed every single one of them. Every single one of them. You can go down the list from about 1950-ish to about 1980-ish.
I mean, you can go before that.
I'm just saying.
They killed
I'm
Jesus
just talking about the civil rights movement.
Oh, okay.
Civil rights movement to I'm gonna say about 1984 when they got around to killing, Sankara and those kind of people. From that time on, every person that we looked to as a leader, they literally just took them off the chessboard when they got too dangerous. I could take it even further to 2008 with Gaddafi.
Man, they killed Nipsey.
Listen, you can go back to Octavius Cato for that.
Yeah,
as well.
we could go back. We could go back all the way to the inception.
Man, some will tell you they killed Jesus, who was a black revolutionary.
Yes,
but,
Listen, Black Jesus matters.
Black
we
Jesus
can go back
matters.
to the inception. But what I'm saying is, anytime you put a person of
already on it,
community-minded person in charge of anything, and then that country or that place starts to make progress, that person gets killed. Because the leader, when they kill a leader, over time, the actual thing that they were fighting for dies because all of the energy died when the leader died. And that's really what happened to all of the things that we did. That's why they jailed our leader. That's why the Black Panther Party, that's why they never let them out. It's not because that they did something so heinous that they needed to be locked up for 40 years. The thing that they did was so heinous is that they united people against what the government was saying. And that's why they've been in jail for the last 45 years.
Yeah, it's just that we're unorganized. Don, I got your point, Don. That's my. I'll start using the T word.
Right.
I was just trying to make a point.
Jimmy, to your point, I was joking around a little bit. However, I think we can learn from everybody. My motto is model, not mimic.
Yeah.
And there is truth in what you said.
It's 100% truth when he said, "I just don't want COINTELPRO to walk up on this door."
Hold on, y'all. Hold on, Eric. We can't all talk over each other. But here's the thing: we all had to be village-minded, and that's going to be the hardest thing. The culture is going to be the hardest thing.
I agree, especially when we look in the billboard for the culture.
Really, this is our most revolutionary show. Really?
Nah, man. You.
Well, listen, Jim just dropped the T word, so I get it.
Yeah. When you get
That's true.
Because Jim is very, very, very cautious when it comes to
COINTELPRO is on my phone. I know they are. Like, it is what it is.
Listen, I just didn't want him to show up at your front door, dog. I love you too
Facts.
much to have you get pulled out of here.
Facts.
when they show up at your
we
at
can't
your
even
front.
move quick enough.
No, dog.
We can't move quick enough.
He don't really believe that, y'all. Whatever y'all don't, he don't believe it.
He doesn't believe. He just said it.
All I'm gonna say on the show tonight is, if something happened to me, y'all know that. Listen. It ain't what they telling y'all. It ain't what they telling y'all.
Listen, I want to say this right now.
Jim is not suicidal. I know for a fact. I talk to this man every day.
Listen.
I know this man. So if that's what happened, it's full of it.
But I think that's but I think, Corey, you make a very valid point, because I think, honest to goodness, is that every time we move in any collective manner, we are completely shut off. We are completely shut down. And I think we really have to be careful. We have to remember history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And we have to remember that. And I think we get so, especially with social media, we get so hyped about showing everybody our gosh darn moves, is that you don't realize that people that you want to admire you are looking at you, but your haters are looking at you too. And I'm not saying your haters, like, whatever, the people that talk about you behind your back. I mean, the other people, And I think those folks, and I think it's super important that, we need to bring back the closed door meeting.
Oh, man.
Tracy said, close that door.
Shout
out to Tracy. She said, close the door when we're having these conversations. Put your phones down. At some point you have to pull out a pen and a pad and go to work. Like, it's just not everything is for show. And I get that people want to be seen. They want to be seen as important. They want to be seen as in the know. I don't want you to think I'm in the know. I want you to think I am just as basic as the most basic person on earth, and that I don't have any sense. That's what I want you to think of me out in the world. And again, I'm not going to talk about more specifically my profession, but just generally, I don't need you to know nothing about me, because at the end of the day, you will use that information against me and people who I care about. And people that I care about. And I think she said, I guess this video will be deleted. I'm done, Delta Lucy.
We ain't really talk about nothing extra crazy tonight. All we did was list the problems and a few of the solutions to those problems. We ain't really say nothing crazy tonight.
Oh,
So
man.
listen,
It's
y'all,
the revolutionary thing that we talked about tonight was loving one another.
That's a fact.
That's revolutionary. That right there.
That is. Black love is revolutionary. Oh, nice T-shirt.
Right,
Another T-shirt.
So the Marines believe in teaching your subordinates your skills so each member can play the head. Thereby, there's always some form of leadership without
It
title.
ain't just the Marines, dog. I was in the Army.
That's military. That's military in general. That's
All
military.
right, so Jose, thank you. I'll start using that analogy next time as opposed to what I said. But I was trying to make a point, and I think the point was, taken. Sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, but I'll say this though, right? Going back to the T word, going back to the military, everybody has to play the role, and everybody's not jockeying to be the HNIC.
This is absolutely true. Sean Carter says everybody got a part to play. Back to yours. You see Latoya's post?
Yeah, Latoya's post is fire.
Let's see. Yes, but they close the doors and there's still an enemy amongst us. We have to leave those behind that mean us no good. But oftentimes,
disrespectfully. No, say that word.
Disrespectfully.
Thank you. We have to leave those behind that mean us no good. Disrespectfully.
Listen, there's an Irish proverb that talks about that. It's like, please, like, break our enemies' ankles so we know them. We know them by their limp. I was like, okay, but here's the thing. I think we really don't talk about that enough. I mean, the way that some of our leaders were taken out were not necessarily by the government.
They were by the government. Look like us, so that we don't blame the government. We always blame us instead of the people who sent them.
Right, but both of them are important. Like, because at the end of the day, if that person didn't allow themselves to be a tool and be used, they wouldn't be able to get in. But the thing is that some people, to Kamari's point about Negropeans, is that we're trying to be accepted by someone. But it's like, hey, if I kind of get in with y'all, then y'all take care of me. No, they won't. You're just another pawn, another tool, and you'll be discarded just like they discarded the person that you were trying to get at.
A Negro in the coop.
Facts.
Yeah, how about that? Well, all right, y'all. Listen, we appreciate you all being here. This is about our time tonight. Listen, keep in mind what we can do to create new banking centers, right? We're going to revamp.
Right here.
We're going to revamp. We're going to revamp the way we look at banks, like Jimmy said. Got to give props to Jimmy. Shout out to Jimmy. Jimmy's the great.
Whoa.
I love Jimmy.
Whoa.
Okay.
It's all love here. It's all love.
Definitely going on IG.
And for all of y'all out there cooning, we got nothing in common. Oh
my gosh.
All right, but listen, y'all. Do us a favor. We are fighting the algorithms, right? So like these videos, like them on Facebook, like them on our YouTube page. You can find everything at the Black Wealth Project. Again, like them and subscribe. Subscribe and follow to both. And we will be back next Sunday at 7 p.m.
Jeffrey Osborne.
Later,
Jeffrey
y'all.
Osborne.